Hi guys, today we're going to be drafting a palazzo trouser pattern. As you can see, I already drafted the basic front pattern and the back as well. So all we're going to be doing is to be adding some allowances to the sides of the basic trouser pattern. I'm going to be starting with my waist. On the waist end, I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches as the allowance that I need to add. The next thing I'm going to do is to also add 1.5 inches on the lower hip. Again, I'm going to do that on the body rise point just below the lower hip. All I'm going to do now is to connect the points together. After joining the points together, we would also add some allowance on our knee point as well as our ankle point. So on the knee point, I'm adding 3 inches because I want the palazzo to be a little bit big. So I'm going to add the same 3 inches to my ankle point. I'll take out these patterns below because we're not using them now, so we can focus on what we're doing. Moving on, I'm going to be joining those points together, the body rise point to my knee point, with a straight ruler. If you have one, if not, you can use your pattern master. After that, what you do next is to connect your knee point to your ankle point with a straight line. The next thing we're going to do is to be moving on to the other side of the trouser pattern. So on the other end of the trouser pattern, looking at the crotch line, on the crotch line, I'm going to label it. That is your crotch line. So what we're going to be doing is to be adding 1 inch to the center. That is the center front as well. It's referred as the center front of your trouser. So we're going to be adding 1 inch to that end, to the crotch line. To understand this properly, you can go back to my basic trouser pattern, so you know how to draft the basic trouser pattern if you haven't watched the video. So what we're going to do next is to connect those points together. So I'm using a straight ruler to connect from my waist point to my lower hip. And I will use the curved side of my pattern master to connect the rest of the points. So it gives you that shape, the curved shape that your crotch is supposed to have. The next thing I'm going to do on the side, on the knee end, I'm going to extend by 2.5 inch, and on the ankle point I'm also going to extend this by 2.5 inches. So this point varies. It depends on how you actually want, how big you want your palazzo to be. You can extend it by more than 3 inches or 4 inches. It just depends on what style you want to create. But this is just a basic palazzo pattern, and I don't want it to be too bogus. So I'm using 2.5 inches on my knee point as well as my ankle point to get that palazzo feel. So I realized that I actually reduced my inches on the center front because I thought 3 inches was going to be too much. So I'm going to reduce the initial 3 inches I used on my new points from the other end of my pattern. And the same thing I'm going to do on my ankle point. And I'm going to extend the line and join it to my body rise point. This was just a mistake and I'm trying to correct it because I changed my mind on using 3 inches. So now I'm using So I'm going to cancel this point off because the lines are no longer needed. So to avoid any confusion, I'm going to be cancelling it off my pattern to indicate that that point is not a part of my pattern. This is basically the palazzo pattern. It's just so simple because the most important thing is to draft your trouser pattern. Once you get that, all you need to do is just to extend the points. So I'm going to extend my waistline by 1 inch, same as the other end. So now I'm going to elongate my crotch line as well by 1 inch. Same for my dart line. I'm going to extend it. Note that you can always close your darts before sewing if you don't want to show your dart line on your trouser. You can close your dart line on your pattern paper. So once you can just close it and use a tape solid tape to like cover it up, and that will give you like a trouser without darts, and you still get your perfect fit after you're done sewing. So we are moving on to the back pattern. On the back pattern, we're going to be doing similar thing. So I'm going to also start on the waist point on the back pattern. So I'm using 1.5 inches again on the waist, the lower hip and the mid-rise point, and this time around I'm going to add up the points. On the knee point, I'm going to also add my allowance, and I'm using 2.5 inches just like I used on the front side. Same on my ankle point, 2.5 inches. What I'm going to do is to connect points by a straight line. So I'm going to also join my knee point to my ankle point with a straight line. Don't forget you can use your ruler if you have. If not, you can use your pattern master just the way I'm using it now. Moving on to the front, to the center back of my back pattern. What I'm doing now is to extend my crotch line like I did in the front by 1 inch. So I'm going to mark 1 inch all around my crotch line from top to bottom. So I'll extend it out by another 1 inch. This is going to serve as the sewing allowance on the center back. And also this 1 inch I'm drafting now can also serve as your zip allowance if you're going to be adding zip at the back of your trouser pattern. So I'm going to be connecting the lines together with my curve ruler. I always use my hand to trace. The reason why I do this, I am not sure, but it's just a reflex for me. I always try, after using my ruler to connect the lines, I try to use my hand to draft the curves. You can skip this part if you like. You don't have to always use your hand to true the curve. If you can, that's fine. So I'm going to use the curve end of my pattern master to connect points together again and extend it to the 1 inch out. So it's 1 inch. I'm going to mark there. There you go. That's my crotch line. Next, I'm going to the ankle end, the knee end and the ankle end of my back pattern, and I'm also extending by 2.5 inches. I'll do the same again on my ankle point, 2.5 inch. So I'm going to extend the points together. I'm just going to join the ends together. So this point is going to be the sewing allowance. So I forgot to also mention that you have to extend your dart upward. The two darts is to be extended upward. I skipped that in this video. Please remember to extend your dart points upwards, and you can close it after that or leave it open and sew it on your fabric when you're done cutting out your pattern. So this is my pocket length, and I'm using 10 inches as you can see for my pocket length, and I'm going to mark it. So I'm basically using 10 inches for my pocket length. You can do more than that if you, depending on how deep you want your pocket to be. So guys, that is basically how to draft your palazzo pattern. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you subscribe